Was walking around the city and talking on the phone when someone suddenly snatched my bag out of my hands. Hey, stop! I hung up and ran after the thief. We raced down the street, almost bumping into passersby. Then, he turned into an alley and soon found himself at a dead end. He turned around, but his face was hidden by a deep hood. He tried to get my bag but failed. The thief was much stronger. He pushed me away, his t-shirt rolled up, and I saw a large tattoo on his stomach. Then, he ran off with my bag, and I couldn't catch him. I was so angry. I felt weak and helpless. At that moment, I decided that I would work out a lot and become strong. I wouldn't let anyone hurt me again. Hi, I'm Miley. 2 years passed since that day. I fulfilled my promise. This whole time, I was working out in the gym, and now I'm in great shape. But there were downsides as well. Boys didn't see me as girlfriend material because of how muscular and tall I was. I couldn't find a boyfriend, and deep down, that really bothered me. One day at school, I accidentally overheard my classmates making fun of me. I got angry and shook my fists at them. They scattered and started laughing even harder. Wow, Miley, could you be less feminine? Nobody wants to date you because you look like a guy. These words struck a nerve. I got upset and decided to skip classes. I wasn't worried about missing something. I often had to skip school to work out and got bad grades as a result. When I got home, I heard voices in the living room. My mom was an administrator in a small restaurant. She was telling Dad that guest artists put on a show at her work every night. A young magician came to perform several times. His name is Oliver Wright. I don't know if it's a real name or a pseudonym. He does incredible tricks and always wears a mask. So mysterious. I quietly went up to my room and locked the door so that my parents wouldn't scold me for skipping school. Then I suddenly got an idea. I created a new account under the name of Oliver Wright. I found a photo on the internet for my profile pic, got some fake subscribers, and made the account private. Then, I used Oliver's account to like all of my own photos and write comments with declarations of love. In the evening, I ordered pizza and a bouquet of flowers. I took a photo of it and posted it with the caption, "Relaxing with Bae." Now, everyone would know I was dating a cool and romantic guy. The whole school knew me, and a lot of students were subscribed to me. The next day, I noticed that my classmates were discussing my personal life. Some of them even asked me who Oliver Wright was. I mysteriously kept silent. A couple of days later, I ordered flowers to school, and all the girls gasped when they saw them. I pretended to constantly be talking on the phone and answering messages. My classmates were wondering what was going on. Everyone was trying to guess who my boyfriend was. One day, I stayed behind after classes. I had skipped a lot of lessons and had to do additional tasks. As usual, I was having trouble with that. I got angry and left without waiting for the teacher. Outside the school gates, I came across a company bullying some guy. He was short and skinny. He was also wearing weird clothes. I was in a terrible mood after failing to do the tasks, and I took it out on them. I stood up for the guy and they ran away. Thanks. I waved him off. I was planning to work out in the evening and went to the gym. Once there, I immediately noticed a handsome and ripped guy. Who was that? I hadn't seen him in the gym before. During practice, he suddenly came up to me and introduced himself. His name turned out to be Gray. So, you're preparing for the competition? Cool. I want to take part in prestigious state competitions too, but I have a problem that stops me. He fell silent, and I didn't ask him what it was. Gray was on my mind all evening. That guy was my ideal. I really wanted to meet him again. The next day, a new student was transferred to our class. When he walked into the classroom, I immediately recognized the kid I had protected the day before. So he was going to study with us now? Meet your new classmate, Oliver Wright. There was a deathly silence in the classroom. Had I heard that right? Oliver Wright? That was my fictional boyfriend's name. Everyone stared at us the whole lesson and laughed quietly. The teacher called me up to the blackboard and I couldn't solve a simple equation. I got a bad mark. My mood had already been bad, but it got even worse after that. During the break, my classmates laughed openly at Oliver and me. Just look at these two. They are perfect for each other. We looked really funny together. But I had made it all up. We weren't dating. He's not my boyfriend. They're just namesakes. And then why did you stand up for him yesterday? I stayed behind after classes and saw everything with my own eyes. No one believed me. I hoped that Oliver would confirm my words, but he didn't understand what was going on and just stayed silent. I dragged him to a secluded place to talk. I explained the situation and asked him to confirm that we weren't dating. But do you know what happened? He refused! At my old school, everyone bullied me. Yesterday, I was going to the principal when I ran into some bad guys. Let's pretend to be a couple. No one would bully me with a girlfriend like you. No, everyone will laugh at me if I date such a twig. Better me than no one. By the way, I noticed in class that you have problems with your studies. If you pretend to be my girlfriend, I'll help you with all subjects. That caught my attention. I really wasn't doing great at school. The principal was even threatening me with expulsion. After weighing all the pros and cons, I agreed to act like we were dating. When we came back to the classroom, I said that Oliver and I were a couple. If any of you make fun of us, you'll have to deal with me. After school, I went to the gym again. Gray wasn't there, and it really upset me. I wanted to see him so much. But after some time, he finally appeared. We worked out together, and then he walked me home. I was head over heels in love. Who could resist such a cool guy? Oliver and I continued to act like a couple in love. We went everywhere together, held hands, and hugged. After school, I wanted to go to the gym as usual. But Oliver reminded me that I needed to study or I would be expelled. I had to stay at school and do stupid tasks. Everything was going fine, but the next day, something unexpected happened. Oliver came up to me and told me that we no longer needed to pose as a couple. He would help me with my studies anyway. I was surprised. Oliver looked unhappy and scared. When I asked him about it, he said that everything was fine. In the end, I agreed. We pretended to break up, but stayed friends. One day, after we finished working out, Gray invited me to a restaurant. I was delighted and said that my mother was working there. When we arrived, I immediately introduced Gray to her. Mom absolutely loved him. She whispered to me that Gray was a handsome and good guy. We sat down at an empty table and the show began. Dancers were performing on stage, and then it was Oliver Wright's turn. The magician performed in a mask, but his figure and gestures seemed familiar to me. Wait, it couldn't be. Was that really my classmate? I thought he was just the magician's namesake. On stage, Oliver was much more relaxed than in real life. His complex tricks were breathtaking. At some point, he noticed Gray and me and got distracted. When Oliver left the stage, we followed him. I wanted to make sure it was really him. My guess was confirmed. It was my classmate behind the mask. Oliver looked kind of scared again and didn't want to talk to me. He was really weird after all. As I was leaving, I came up to my mom to say goodbye. She complained that the combination lock on the safe was broken, and the technician did not want to come so late in the evening. Gray suddenly broke in. My father's a professional technician, and I often help him. I could try to fix it. Of course, Mom happily agreed. Gray got to work, and in half an hour, he was done. Mom was pleased, and I was very proud to have such a guy there with me. The next day, the teachers gave us a lot of complicated homework. I suggested we study at my place. When we arrived, my parents were at home. They were surprised to see Oliver. Mom took me aside and said he was kind of weird. Then I told her that he was a magician from the restaurant. My parents were shocked. Mom immediately sat Oliver down at the table and asked him a dozen questions. He said that he had always liked magic tricks. Now, he was saving up money for a masterclass from a famous illusionist and dreamed of someday reaching the same level as him. After we came to my room, I asked Oliver why he was hiding his hobby. Magic tricks were so cool. I used to show tricks to everyone. I didn't always nail it, and they made fun of me. So one day, I decided to separate my magician persona and ordinary life. Please don't take it the wrong way, but everyone is laughing at you now anyway. So why don't you tell everyone about your hobby? It definitely can't get any worse. I was sure that, on the contrary, people would come to respect him. Oliver wasn't sure about that, but I managed to convince him. The next day, I told my classmates that Oliver would be showing us a cool show. They got interested, and in the evening, there wasn't a single empty seat left in the restaurant. I also invited Gray, and we sat down together. I could feel my classmates staring at me. They were whispering to each other and discussing my new boyfriend. It was so good for my ego. There was silence in the restaurant when Oliver came on stage. He was very nervous and kept dropping everything at first. The poor guy turned red and tried to get a grip of himself, but that didn't work. People started laughing at him. I got on stage to support him. Oliver quickly pulled himself together and showed a trick with my participation. It went well. He got back his confidence and started to show new tricks. The laughter died away, replaced with delight and admiration. In the end, Oliver walked around the hall and stopped at the reception desk. He asked my mom to come out and took her place. A minute later, he also went back, and a large bouquet of flowers suddenly appeared on the desk. It was very impressive. The audience applauded loudly. All of a sudden, a fire alarm went off in the restaurant. At first, everyone thought it was another trick of Oliver's, but it soon became clear that it wasn't. Everyone was confused. The guests began to panic, and they were evacuated. After a while, firefighters and an ambulance arrived. Then, cops suddenly came to the restaurant. Mom was in tears. It turned out that money had disappeared from the cash register and the safe in which the monthly revenue was stored. I tried to calm Mom down and stood by her side. The police and I looked at the footage from the cameras, but because of the triggered alarm, they had been splashed with foam. It was impossible to make out anything. The cops asked us who the last person to come up to the front desk was. Everyone immediately remembered Oliver's trick. My mom said that he was saving money for a masterclass with a famous illusionist. Naturally, Oliver immediately became the main suspect. He was detained and taken to the station. I didn't believe it was him, so I went with him. When we were alone, Oliver swore he hadn't taken the money. By the way, I wanted to tell you something for a long time. When we were pretending to be a couple, Craig came to me. He demanded I break up with you and threatened me. He scared me, so I suggested we stop pretending to be a couple. I was also thinking, do you remember Gray fixing the safe in the restaurant? He could have found out the code and stolen the money. It seemed like complete nonsense to me. Gray would have never done something like that. He had probably just wanted to become my boyfriend, and so he had done that. There wasn't enough evidence against Oliver, and he was soon released. I came to the gym the next day, but Gray wasn't there. He wasn't answering my calls and didn't show up the day after either. I decided to ask my coach about him. Gray is soon leaving for the competitions he wanted to take part in. I remembered him telling me about it. He said that he could not participate because of some problem. Participation in such prestigious competitions is expensive. Gray hadn't had such money, but yesterday he finally made the first payment. I felt like I had been doused with cold water. No, it couldn't be. Was Oliver right? Had Gray stolen the money? I didn't want to believe it. I found his address on the registration card and went to his house to talk. When he opened the door, he looked very surprised. Gray clearly wasn't expecting to see me. He'd been taking a shower and had a wet towel around his shoulders. I suddenly noticed a big tattoo on his stomach. A scene that had happened 2 years ago immediately surfaced in my memory. The guy who had stolen my bag had had the same tattoo. It couldn't be a coincidence. It was you. You stole my bag 2 years ago, and you stole the money from the restaurant too. Are you crazy? I don't know what you're talking about. Gray suddenly took off, ran toward the window, and jumped out into the street. I ran after him. Not so fast. He wouldn't escape again. We ran through the city and soon found ourselves in a small alley. There was a dead end ahead. We had been in such a situation before, but now I was stronger than I had been back then. Gray tried to go around me, but I didn't let him. I pinned him down and called the cops. After they arrived, they searched his apartment. They found the money he hadn't yet spent on the competition there. The cops ran him through the system and found that Gray had been arrested for theft more than once before. As they were pushing him into the car, he suddenly turned to me. You know, I really liked you. My heart gave an unpleasant twinge. His words only made it all more painful. During the next few weeks, I couldn't get over the shock. It was a shame that things turned out that way. I really had fallen in love with Gray. He turned out to be such an awful person. I didn't know what I would have done if Oliver hadn't been there for me. He cheered me up, entertained me, and gave me cute gifts. People stopped making fun of him at school. I was right, and his unusual talent made him popular. He was respected now. Bit by bit, I started to feel better. I started going to the gym and preparing for competitions again. It might be hard to believe, but one day Oliver and I started dating. We are a strange couple, but we don't care. We have learned to accept ourselves as we are, and it no longer matters what others think about us. I recently won a competition and gave my cash prize to Oliver to make his dream come true. A famous illusionist is teaching him right now, and I believe he's got a big future ahead of him. I realized that looks aren't that important. What do you think?
If you're watching this, you've already breached the SCP Foundation protocols. Stay where you are. The cleanup team is on the way. In the meantime, you can watch stories of the people who were lucky enough to encounter the most anomalous SCP objects. When the Foundation staff arrives, you will be treated by Class A amnestics and you won't recall anything. This record will self-destruct in 3, 2, 1.